Lizia Santos, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you. How are you?
Fantastic. You and I are we can almost see each other from here. Like I'm in Tampa, Florida. You're in Orlando, and
Yeah.
just on the opposite ends of the I-4 corridor.
Yeah. Wait there. I can go outside and see if I can see you from here.
Right, right. We'll see. But you're really close to that space coast over there, and so you get to see the rockets go off, right? So can
Yes.
you literally get to go out in your backyard and watch the SpaceX and NASA and stuff happen?
Well, we drive there.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
but can you
Yeah,
see if you wanted to? Could you look closely and see it from your house, or no? Is it not close enough?
not close enough. No,
Okay.
like you would see, like probably, as much as you can see from there.
Barely. But
Yeah,
you
it's
like
very
you're
cloudy
less
in
than,
here too.
you're less than an hour away from
Yes.
over there, right? Do you
Yes.
guys go over there and watch some of these rockets go off occasionally?
Yes. One of my sons is very into this thing, this stuff. So yes, we do. They love NASA. We love visiting there.
Right. And you're
Yeah.
on the Winter Park side of Orlando, right? So you're, I think, right? Am I right? Winter Park area?
Not really. Winter Park is north of Orlando.
Okay.
I
So
am.
what part of Orlando do you actually live?
I lived in an area called Hunters Creek.
Okay.
It's right in the border of Kissimmee, which is
Oh, so
south
you're
of
actually
Orlando. Yeah, I'm
you're
closer to you.
here.
Yeah,
You
closer to
were
you.
actually this side. I get it. That's
Yeah.
right. All right.
Closer to Tampa as well than
Yeah,
Orlando. Yeah.
and so you and I connect because our ecosystems almost touch, right? The Tampa Bay ecosystem, startup ecosystem, very close to the Orlando Tampa tech ecosystem, and you and I were able to meet that way, and we just kind of I was just kind of fascinated with what you were doing. And then I invited you to come speak at one of my starter forum groups, and you said yes, and that was great. And you came and you shared your story with a lot of a small group of founders that we have in the area. And I became really fascinated with that story. It was riveting, honestly, and that's why I was like, this is a riveting story in terms of what you went through to get all the way to where you are, to be a tech entrepreneur, an unlikely accidental tech entrepreneur, right?
Very unlikely.
Very unlikely. And then having made some of these made some really difficult things that happened early on, right? And that you had to kind of fight through and recover. And that's some of the stories that we're going to get into today that we want people to hear.
Yeah.
And so that's why I wanted you on the show. I actually, having built a tech startup myself, a few, but way back in my very first one, a lot of, if you don't mind me saying, a lot of rookie mistakes, right? Is that a fair enough way to say, right?
Yes. It's hard to avoid them if you don't have any resources like this podcast to help you avoid them.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I think most of us will do it.
Yeah, so many people we all tend to just want to dive in, don't we?
Yes. Yeah. We'll just go with the flow with whatever we see in front of us, right in front of us. That's what actually influences us. So I'll let you, go a little bit further before I say more. But yes, you see whatever you see in front of you, you're like, oh, this is what I have to do. But sometimes the answer is kind of hidden a little bit more. Like you should explore a little bit more before you take any chances.
Right.
So that was a lesson learned.
And that's a good place to start, actually, was the beginning of CityCatt, right? You told this story in our other group that we did, and I want to hear it again. I think people should hear kind of the origin story of CityCatt, and how it, came to be. If you don't mind, I know, first of all, we know that you were a journalist. You were a journalism career going, right? And then talk about the day that CityCatt was born.
So, to give you a little bit of a background, I'm Brazilian, so born and raised in Brazil, and I'm part of a family that loves traveling, and it's very international, as per se. I have cousins in Japan, I have cousins in Europe. My dad was an exchange student here in the U.S. in Michigan when he was 17, so he speaks English fluently, and most of my family lived here at some point. So we're always, all about traveling around the world. So as a kid, my favorite place in the world was airports. I loved airports. Airports were fascinating for me. Like I would trade anything to go to the airport and just people watch, like it's so interesting. I also got to live as a kid in a hotel. My parents were managers at this hotel, and we had a little apartment on top of the hotel. Wow. And, I got to host a lot of people and see people from all over the world. I'm from a coast area of Brazil, like where you see all those beautiful beaches that you see, like when you Google Brazil, that's where I lived, like right in front of the beach.
Wow.
So, that was always my thing, traveling, going to airports, interacting with other people, trying to speak English as much as I could, to the point that I somehow, learned English. I didn't take classes. I just, figured it out at some point.
And just to set the record straight, Portuguese is the language that you grew up with.
Portuguese, not Spanish. We do not speak Spanish. So that was me as a person, always passionate about learning about other cultures, and also hosting people from other cultures. We, as a hotel, I think we went above and beyond, because we didn't just host them, we would take them places that was not required of us, and people wouldn't pay us extra for that. We just loved taking the tourists to places that we knew they were going to love. So that was my experience growing up. And then I ended up coming to the US at some point. I don't know if you want me to go in there right now, but
I want to get into that story, but I just want to jump right to, we're going to come back to that backstory, but I want to jump right to the day that I found hit you. And I think it was at the airport, if I'm not mistaken.
No. Actually, no. The most unlikely of places. So being that person that loves traveling, loves hosting, and then moving to the US, I got to host a lot of people. That's a thing about Brazilians. They'll come to your house. Mm-hmm. They'll stay at your house, and they'll expect you to take them places. So I've always hosted a lot of people because I lived in different states here in the US. And I was just talking about that with my dad, actually. We were driving home from my youngest son's first pediatrician
I remember that. I knew you were with your dad, and I was thinking you were coming back from the airport with your dad, but I remembered you were with your dad.
Yes. So I have 3 boys, and this was my youngest son. He was 2 weeks, a week and a half, something like that. So most unlikely, that's the phase of life that nobody is thinking about building a business, but I somehow, a business idea came to me when I was, lacking sleep, lacking everything else. I was just driving home with my dad, and we were talking about this, like how my dad is, I admire him too so much. He's always having business ideas. I think I get that from him. And we were talking about how traveling is just so much more enjoyable when you have someone that's passionate about hosting you, not necessarily hosting in your house, but helping you have the best experience. And as we were talking about this, how, when we go places and we know someone, it's better, or when someone comes, and I'm just telling him, people think Orlando is about Disney, but look at Winter Park, look at Windermere, look at Lake Eola, all of these places that people don't go. And then an Uber drove by, like as we were talking. And we saw the little sticker, and I'm like, Dad, what if, I had the aha moment. What if there was a platform for that, where people could find people in places that they don't know anybody? Because if you have a friend, you call your friend.
Right.
But if you don't know anybody in that place, what if you can make questions? What if that person can make sure that you have the best experience? And what if they could introduce you to places that you wouldn't find otherwise? And then I couldn't sleep anymore until I did something about it. And I actually did something about it like 2 weeks later, so.
But meanwhile, you were writing for a magazine or a newspaper at the time, right?
I was freelancing in different places. I was writing for a tourism magazine that's published in Brazil.
Yeah.
It's all about Orlando, Disney, Universal parks. And I was also writing for a business website back then. Yeah. So I think this is where I started having some sort of entrepreneurial bug, coming inside of me. But
because before that, I get a little free time. When you're a freelancer, you've got gaps, right? And so your mind can get time to wonder and think about things, right?
Yeah, and as a journalist, you end up knowing about what you write about at that moment, and then you forget about it. We're experts in learning about something very deeply in 20 minutes, And then you just forget all about that.
You gotta go. There's a new thing. You got to get all into that new thing.
Yeah, but at that specific moment, I was writing about business. So I guess, those two things kind of ended up merging, business and tourism. It's because of that as well. I ended up having the idea.
Yeah. And so you were riding in the car with your dad, and then you had this idea, wouldn't it be great, like people that travel, if you could go to a city, and if where you don't have friends, if you could connect with people that knew the area, that would tell you where to go and show you around, right?
Yes.
And I imagine you immediately did some competitive research where you found out there were no apps or no sites that did that at the time. Did you do your competitive research first?
I did, yeah. And I found out back then that there were websites that locals offered guidance, like in-person guidance, but most of these, there were 2 or 3 that I could find within the US. They could name their prices. There were people offering for free, like service for free. They didn't check identities. They didn't verify identities. They didn't do background checks, none of that. So now as a mom, I looked at that and I said I would never hire that. No, I really want to have something like that, but I would never hire that because it looks sketchy. For me as a mom, I'm not going to expose my kids to something. If a person is offering something for free, it's kind of...
That's the concern.
Yeah. And it went somewhere.
This idea would you would actually be with that person physically. Is that right? That was the...
Yes. When the idea first started, that was my idea. In-person guidance through cities. But I wanted something that was family friendly, safe, not necessarily just for families, but something that a family would be comfortable in using. And that I didn't find anywhere.
Okay. And so your first thought, and we talked about this, was, an app, right? You would say like, obviously an app, because that's, we still love apps. So it still would make sense today.
Yeah.
And so I've got a little surprise question for you that I told you I was going to do, because it's my tradition. I have a surprise question for my guests that they only vaguely could guess, but if they wanted to, right? Right. So this is the question, right, Lizia? So this is the moment. Okay. What's the first thing one should do if one wants to create a new app or website? They have a big idea. They're not technical, by the way. They're not technical. What's the first thing they should do, and what's the first, and versus maybe the first thing you did as comparison?
Well, the first thing I did was just looking at what was out there, and I thought that I had to replicate the business model of what was out there. I was wrong.
Okay.
So just, lessons. I was
this whole podcast is about lessons learned. Yeah.
Yes. The first thing I should have done, I should have talked to people. I was under the impression that I had to figure it out myself. And then when I had everything ready, then I would, come out and, say, hey, world, here's my amazing discovery and here's what I bought. And I was very wrong. I was unexperienced. First of all, I'm not a techie person. I am a techie, but I wasn't a tech founder. I'm not a programmer and not a coder. So I thought that I had to replicate the way that Uber was doing things or Airbnb was doing things. But I didn't know back then that they didn't start like that. They started with a much more simpler business model that worked for a while, and then they kept, tweaking the platform. But they did that based on customer reviews, the feedback of customers. I didn't know back then. So I thought that I just had to get whatever they had now and make it happen for me. But I was wrong. So what I would do differently, I wouldn't tell the whole world about it because, then you kind of burn the bridges as well. But I would have done a lot of surveys before. I would have talked to people. I would have found out first what was my niche. That was another thing that I wasn't sure what was my niche. I knew I wanted to do something family friendly, but in the beginning, I was going for everybody. I'm just build this for everybody, and it doesn't work like that as well. If I had found out what was my niche first, I could have gone to people that I could have made a sample, from those people, and I could have talked to them, and I would have found out that what I needed was much more simpler than what I first built, like way simpler. Like, I had this very, I wouldn't say complicated, because it was simple, but comprehensive UX, like full of different steps and stuff.
Everything you could ever want, right?
Yes, yeah, and people didn't want that back then, So I could have launched CityCatt way sooner if I had done that differently. I wouldn't have burned like all the cash that I had. I wouldn't have gone through so many stressful moments that I had to go through afterwards. So that's, did I answer it?
So that's great. No, great. So talking to your prospective users, your customers, finding your niche, getting all that feedback would have been a first step. And then when it was time to build it, right? You obviously needed to hire because you weren't a coder yourself. There's a couple paths here, right? You can find a technical co-founder that will build it for equity and no money, but there's risks and rewards with that, right? Bringing someone in that now has potential control and stake in the company that may not, work at the pace that you need, or may not want to do it. There's a whole lot of challenges with that versus finding a technical partner, let's call it a technical partner, that will build it to your spec and will work with a good pace because you're paying them. So let's talk about that in terms of before you engage a developer, let's call yourself a non-coder founder, before you engage a developer partner, what would be some advice you would throw out there, what you kind of did versus what you would advise someone today on?
Well, the coders, they're traditionally, people say they're introverts, they're in their own world, and I don't like stereotypes.
Right.
But a lot of the ones that I dealt with were like that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Of course. So I'd say, like, because I didn't know better, and at least I was humble enough to admit that I didn't know better. So, but I went for them looking for guidance on UX, on things like user experience. Yeah. And it's not their specialty.
Right.
Right.
But they're not going to tell you. They're not going to tell you that.
No. So it was more like a negotiation. I'm like, can you do that? And they're like, yes. Can you do that? Yes. And then they're like, well, maybe we should do that, but the suggestions they gave me back were based on technology only, not on the user experience.
Right.
So I would have done that completely different. When
you got things back, they didn't look quite right.
No, because they didn't. It's not their specialty. Like, they won't think about the user. They'll think about the technology, what makes sense in the technology side. And sometimes it's much simpler than that. So if I had listened to the user first, I would have come to the developer with, a fluxogram that made sense and that was much more simpler. And it would have taken them probably with the user, the coders, how did you call it? The coding partner?
Yeah, a partner, yeah.
Yeah, probably what happened wouldn't have happened, because they ended up abandoning the project that was so huge because they found another company that paid them better for another project. If it was simpler, I would have probably gotten my app.
Right. That's kind of right, and that's kind of what you and I talked about before, and I was kind of fishing for was the kind of the situation where developers, the writing code and so forth. It's kind of like when you're building a house or building a building or a construction, right? You really need to sit down with an architect and sit down with a planner, designer, right, to talk about the flow of people and all of the human elements before you start talking to the people that are going to put in the plumbing or all the physical elements of that building, right?
Yes, because like if you do that first, you might even realize that you don't even need an app. You could do with a website. You could do with a third-party tool, whatever. Which is what I had. Like, I ended up doing afterwards when I had no cash.
Yeah,
to keep
right.
going. So, I kind of traded, like it wasn't supposed to be the first thing. And I could have had this cash afterwards to develop further what I had. But yes, if you sit down and plan first, then it might be much simpler, much affordable, much more affordable to implement your idea. Yeah.
If you've ever built a house, which I have, and a lot of people have, there's weeks or months of back and forth with the architect and designers even, like, and work. Just you're not talking to the people that are actually going to build it, right? You're talking to the people to get the concepts of what you're trying to do from a human perspective, and negotiate every little detail in advance, and the budget's included in that, right? And so then when you're finally done, to take it to the people that can build it, and then, like you said, you get, and I'm glad and I appreciate you sharing the story, because I actually made the mistake myself once, and it was very painful and expensive, and it's a very common first step mistake that founders make, even if they're technical. Just if you're not building the thing yourself. And by the way, even if you build it yourself, there's a whole bunch of other pitfalls that are. So just because you're a coder doesn't mean that you solve this problem. By the way, you got a whole. No. You're going to step in. It really comes down to. I would even argue that a coder might be even more vulnerable because they can build it themselves. It does get back down to, like you said, customer user interaction surveys, and then sitting down from a usability, doing all that stuff before you get around to building, right? Yeah,
well, nowadays you can build entire demos without any coding at all. There are tools for that. You just make a design and clickable demos. Yeah. So you can have people play around with your platform without ever coding anything, and it's actually free.
Yeah, and there's an old tool that I learned about 10 years ago that's still awesome. It's called Balsamiq. Have you ever seen it? It's a website, Balsamiq, like the salad dressing. Balsamiq, ends with a Q.com. It's incredible. It's a drag and drop storyboard UI UX tool for anybody to just kind of create an app just by dragging and dropping, because we all have it in our minds about how it should work. And it's great to kind of put it on paper first, and then a developer can then know what the heck you're really thinking, right? Because if they're leading, then you right. You went through all of this.
Yes, back and forth with them, trying to put my vision into something that they can actually understand.
Yeah, and it's frustrating because you get back, they're trying really hard to please you, but they can't quite, and they spend a lot of time creating something that they think that you meant or that you like, and you're like, it's not quite what I meant.
Yes.
And it's frustrating for both sides, right?
Yes. And a funny story for me, it was even more challenging because I outsourced in Chile. They speak Spanish, I speak Portuguese, and they had one person there that wasn't even a coder, like a friend that spoke English. So that was, we used their second language to communicate about something that I had no clue about. I was just using the best of my skills as a journalist, which is, pretending I know what I'm talking about.
So Lizia, I know, of course, Lizia, right. That's what every great entrepreneur can do, by the way. That's nothing to be ashamed of. That's something definitely to brag about. That's what makes great entrepreneurs. We know how to paint visions and push people and push things along and make things that's the gift, right? But a tough question. Okay, when you were going through this, I'm going to call it a dark period. At first, it was probably, if I were to draw a chart, you probably were very optimistic and happy. But then, as soon as you hit some of these problems that we were talking about, which were frustration, and then also the money was a problem. How tough was it in your home with you're a mom, you have these small children, your husband, you've raised some friends and family money. Was there a real panic period? Was there a really tough panic period for you? I'm sorry to ask that, but I think people need to know how hard that little part is.
Yes, there was. And I honestly can't tell you how you survived that period.
Nobody's asking, you got it blocked out.
I look back and I have no idea how my kids are so smart nowadays, how my marriage survived, how I still live in this house and nobody has. cut our
Right.
electricity yet.
Yeah.
I don't know. I cannot tell you. I am also a homeschool mom. We haven't mentioned that here before. And I felt really, really guilty because sometimes we just didn't do school for like 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
Right.
I just
Because
abandoned my kids.
you were in a quagmire. You were in a real mess, right?
Yes. And I am very OCD, and I cannot function in a messy environment. So sometimes I just had to pick and choose, like I cannot work with a messy home. So I got to clean up this mess, or I have to do school. I am going to clean up the mess because otherwise I just can't function. And then, I'm just going to trust that my kids will be fine if they don't learn addition today.
Right.
They ended up being fine.
You just seem so, and we're going to get into later, like how you've now got yourself in a really good place, and that's really wonderful. But I know how tough that spot was because I went through it, and I've helped other founders and entrepreneurs go through that really dark area, right? And you just seem like you just were able to recover and get yourself, like, you don't seem very damaged for it. You seem like you compartmentalized it and fought through it. But I think that's just really notable about you, right? Like, because I know it was tough. So it was tough on your marriage. Probably it was, you mentioned with your children. Was there a moment that you felt like you were going to give up? Did you ever feel like maybe this is, I'm really freaking out. I'm really freaking out.
Yes. I have shoulder pain.
Yeah.
My left shoulder, it really hurts when I'm stressed out. And I've had many moments like that when I just couldn't bear the pain in here. Like all my stress comes here somehow. And I had periods where I couldn't sleep, and I gained weight.
Yep.
And I lost, and I am very optimistic as a person. I am very optimistic. I can tell. Sometimes it's ridiculous sometimes. Like everybody's freaking out and I'm like, this is going to be all right. But there were moments where I couldn't recognize myself. I never got into depression or something like that, but my reaction was not sleeping, gaining weight. And there was some point where I had to do something to change that situation. So I started with my own health. I decided to go on a detox for a while. I decided I needed to exercise every day. And I realized that when I exercised, at least for 20 minutes, even in the morning, my whole day was different. I could see things from a different perspective. So I had to change some things personally that really affected me and the business. Because we have a body, we cannot separate, we cannot function outside of our body. So I realized, maybe this is out of my reach right now, whatever is going on in the world or in the industry, I cannot do anything about that, but I can do something about me so I can keep going while I wait for whatever is out of my reach. So that's what I did at these moments.
So you got, during those tough moments, you got really focused on your diet and on your exercise. And was there anything else that helped you pull through that difficult time that you can think of?
Personally or in the business?
Personally. Yeah, personally. Was there?
Family. My family was crucial and all of that. Not just my immediate family, but CityCatt, when I first had the idea, I brought it to my family. We're a very tight family. And I have some aunts and cousins that live here. And amazingly, most of them have some sort of a connection with the concept of CityCatt. Like I have people in hospitality, I have people in human resources, I have people in customer service, all in my family that, have specialized themselves in these fields. So I went to them and I brainstormed with them, and they gave me the hope to keep going. Wow. And I got them involved. So that's another thing too. We have a lot of family involved in CityCatt. It's at some point, and
that's
also
really,
and also
really
my
big.
faith as well. I am, someone that's
family, your faith, your diet, your sleep. I mean, your exercise, and your exercise made a big difference. It sounds like.
Yes, it did. Yeah, all of these things, you cannot let these things go. I am not a proponent of like that 10x thing that people talk about, just forget about everything and focus on the business, you got to choose one. No, I think there must be a balance. The balance might not be, maybe when you talk about balance, people think it's, let's just take it easy. I don't think you need to take it easy, but if you're going to be intense with your business, you got to be as intense with your personal life. Yeah. Because I don't think anybody can function like that. Let me just forget about me as a person and then focus on the business. If I'm going to be 100% in my business, then I'm going to be 100% in my family, and I'm going to be 200% somehow. But I got to have that thing going on here. My family, my faith, my health. It has to back me up so I can keep going with the business, because it's tough. It's tough. Yeah, because, and that's the other thing. If you roll the dice on all of that, the stakes are too high. If it doesn't hit, you fall apart because you gambled your health and your wellness, and you gambled your family. You gambled too much, and then then if it doesn't stick, which very well could be a reality for you, you could lose it all, right? But by keeping it all in balance, it's like a marathon, right? Like you wouldn't sprint the first mile of a marathon or the first 5 miles of a marathon, because you won't finish if you sprint the first 5 miles of a marathon, right? You have to say, hey, I could sprint the first 5 miles and show everybody how fast I am, right? But that's not very smart, and nobody would be impressed, right? Like what matters is, can you be there at mile 23 and finish? That's kind of like a startup, isn't it? It is. Yeah, it is. It really is. Yeah. Like don't burn the bridges with your personal life, with the people that love you, that will be there for you, like no matter what. Because even if it's successful, we hear about people that are very successful and lost everything else, and now they have nobody to share the success with.
That's right. They got to get all new friends, new family, new everything, right? Yeah.
And it's much harder because now they're interested in your money. So if you have,
they're never going to be your real friends.
Exactly. Yeah, that must be tough. No, I'm always thinking about that. The famous people, the friends are probably the ones that either were with them since they were kids, or it's, the ones that are famous like them. Because, you can never know if people are just interested in your money or in your success, so that's very important.
Speaking of famous, we're going to get to you a little later and all of your fame with, TechCrunch and how I built this and the WIN Lab. So we're going to come back to that. First of all, I wanted to cover my little, my sponsor for the podcast, right? And our sponsor is Secure Startup. So securestartup.com is a one-stop platform for all the documents that founders and investors use back and forth when they're raising capital, right? So this is, it's really, you could use you could have used that a few times, right? Yeah. So it's like, all the sign-offs, making sure that it's secure, and all these documents, and keeping track of putting them in a safe repository, and making sure that they're being handed off safely between investor and founder, and getting the sign-offs and so forth. So that's what Secure Startup does, and we needed that 5 years ago, Lizia, right?
We so needed that.
We needed that 5 years ago. And by the way, how long ago did you start CityCatt? That's my curiosity, actually.
So the idea is as old as my youngest son, who just turned 4.
Okay.
So it took
3.5 years, maybe 3 years.
The idea, yes, but then the actual business 3 years ago. Yeah, okay. It took us a year just thinking through and not doing much, and then we founded it officially 3 years ago.
And something else that we have in common, I should have even mentioned on the front end, you and I both are TechCrunch alum, and we haven't talked about that in a few weeks since our first call together. And that's a really cool little club to be in. And we'll come back to that from TechCrunch Disrupt in San Francisco, in terms of where I launched one of my startups. And you just went there last year, right?
Yes, last year. Yeah, it was an amazing experience. I went there with the WIN Lab ladies. The WIN Lab is this accelerator by Babson. And it's called Women Innovating Now. It's the acronym for that. And they selected some founders, and we went to TechCrunch, and it was amazing. The amount of people that you meet. Yeah. And it's funny because you meet these people that They're from like huge companies, successful companies, unicorns, and they're just walking by. And they approach you and they talk to you, and you're like freaking out in the inside. Pretend, you're fine. You're just fine. Playing it cool. It was we made very important connections. We had talks that we never, imagined we would have, and like that's very intense 2 days.
That's very great. I just couldn't believe that, because for me it was a while back. I mean, I was there in I'm gonna age myself, but it was 2008. And I think it was only the second or third year of the whole thing, right?
You were only 15, right?
I know. Yikes. I mean, you're right. Like, wow, 2008. But I think I told you the story earlier. Mark Cuban was our speaker at the time, and he only became really famous a couple years ago here in America with the Shark Tank. But he was tech famous in 08 because he had just sold. He had sold his tech company a few years prior. And I got to meet him and hang out with him for quite a while, and some other cool celebrities, and it was a really great trip. And so it's really great to hear that the TechCrunch experience is still awesome, Yeah,
the speaker and ours was Will Smith.
Oh,
yes.
That's great. That's really cool.
Yeah.
So I want to go back. I want to go back all the way to Brazil. So did you really grow up like right on near the coast?
Yeah, I went to the beach every weekend.
Well, I'm going to be clear. I live near the coast right now, so just to match up with you, Tampa Bay, we're on the Gulf of Mexico. But you grew up in one of the most beautiful places in the world.
I did, yeah. I did. Very not just the whole country is beautiful, but I lived in a very, very beautiful city. We had 10 or 15 different beaches. It's literally in the coast. And our city, they have very strict codes, building codes. So they don't allow buildings in the coast area. So it's very breezy. We get all the breeze from the coast. So it's very nice weather, very nice people. You make friends in Brazil, when in any line, you're just waiting for your turn. Anywhere you make friends. That's how we are. And
so you were were you, was it a small village? Was it kind of the city?
No. It's the capital of the state that I lived in. It's called Natal.
But I know the city, but where you grew up, did you grow up kind of out in the countryside or near the urban?
No. The capital of the state. So the urban, very urban area, it's called Natal, which means Christmas in English. It was founded on Christmas Eve. That's why it's called Christmas, the city. Yeah, and it's actually, fun fact, if you think about the map of Brazil, it kind of goes like that. Natal is the nearest point to Africa and Europe. So back in Second World War, the USA had a base there, and it was called the Trampoline of Victory. They would send the troops to Natal, and then from Natal to somewhere in Africa, and then from Africa they would go to Europe. Yeah. So everybody that went to Europe on the Second World War went through Natal.
Wow.
So we have a lot of
it was the furthest tip out, closest to Europe.
In America, yeah. They would go, So we have a lot of influence, American influence in the city that I grew up in. So, for example, the biggest shopping mall there, it's called Midway Mall. It's in English. There's a lot of stuff that's named in English, and people don't even know how to say it. So they'll say it with a very Brazilian accent.
Wow.
But it's there's always very touristic. So there's always Americans, Europeans around. They own a lot of businesses there. There are a lot of restaurants that are owned by Americans that retire here and they go live in Natal. Wow. Because the currency also, $1 equals now 5 reais, which is our currency there. So in here, you're middle class. In there, you're rich. So you can buy yourself a hotel or a restaurant.
This is why I'm going to retire down there. That's why I am.
And I'm not even charging for that tip. So.
Hey, I appreciate it, actually. Now, what did your parents do?
My dad, he's a pastor.
Oh, wow.
So I'm a pastor's kid.
Wow.
And my mom, she's an accountant, and she's actually in charge of this government facility that handles all the blood transfusions in the whole state.
Wow.
So
Okay.
she's, the administrative executive, like overseeing all of this. It's a very complicated operations, that goes, so this all can work out. So, I have a lot of business, people in my family, actually.
So what kind of girl were you, so to speak, in high school and middle, like, were you very active in things? Were you, and what were your dreams and ambitions as a young girl, all the way through high school?
I was always a leader ever since I was very little. I never thought I had the age that I have, I currently had.
You just wanted to be in charge. If there was somebody to be in charge or to lead, you were like, that was you.
Yeah, I was always hanging out with the older kids, and my dad being a pastor helped a lot because he always, put me in charge of things. I was always helping. I would, organize entire church retreats. I would, had the children's ministry, all of that. I was always multitasking, helping out my dad in his ministry. And I was always the leader of my class. I don't know if they have this here in the USA, but in Brazil, every class, like a grade, they elect a leader. And it's like, the key person, like between that communicates with the teacher on behalf of the students. That was always me.
Yeah. So your dad, in other words, your dad no one is surprised that you're running a startup in America.
No, they're not. I was always the overachiever, always. Nobody could tell me that I could not achieve what I had in mind. That was always me. And I have a son that's just like that. My oldest son, like,
same way.
I have to pull him back, hey, come down. You're only 8.
Yeah.
Chill.
Yeah, I feel you on that. And so then you graduated high school there, right?
College as well.
College as well. Okay.
Yeah, journalism, and then I came here.
And then you went to a wedding in Boston, right? You went to a wedding. You went to a wedding. One of your girlfriends who was also Brazilian, right?
Yes, I had come here before just to visit because I had family living here. But when I was 20, I came to visit my friend who was getting married. I came to her wedding. Yeah. And then I met my husband.
Yeah.
Then
he was here already, but he was also Brazilian.
Yeah, he was raised here. He came, he was 6 when he came to the US. Right. He was raised here. So I met him, went back to Brazil. I was already, I think, in my last semester of school. Yeah. So I finished, and then I came here. We got engaged, and I just got my master's degree here. We married a year later.
How did your parents feel about that? First of all, they were happy. They probably were happy he was Brazilian, but moving away to America, how did they feel about that?
So my dad's a lot like me. He's an overachiever, a dreamer. They weren't surprised. They always knew that I was gonna be the one that was gonna lead them.
Go chase your dreams.
Yeah, they were always very supportive of my dreams, and they supported me 100%. Like, they helped me through, because in the beginning I came on a student visa. I had to pay for school. They did whatever they could to help me, to support me through this phase until I got married. And then my poor husband had to pay for my school right up front.
And that's bad.
He married me. He knew what he was getting into.
I think he still got the better deal on that. It was good. The Babson was the college that you carried on with in Boston?
No, not really. So back then I had no idea I was going to be an entrepreneur. I had an entrepreneurial mind always, but I didn't know about that. I always dreamed about being a journalist. Yeah, I always wanted to be a journalist. And because I'm just very passionate about information. And I also love the fact that a journalist gets to translate this very complicated thing into something that's digestible by anybody. So that was always my passion. And I always loved tech.
Can I go on a limb? Can I go on a limb and say too that journalists get to be in control?
True.
Right, a little bit, right? They get to
of the narrative. Yeah, you're in control of the narrative.
You get to make I think that's kind of a thing. Entrepreneurs, we like to be in control. And
that's right. And then if I think back on college, I don't know how it is here, but in Brazil, when you're about to finish college in your last semester, you have to. There's this thing that it's like a huge paper that you have to write. It's kind of like a book, like it's as lengthy as a book, like a 200, 300 page thing that you have to deliver in order to graduate. So mine, because it was journalism, they gave me the option. You could either write the paper or you could do a more practical thing. So I went for the practical thing, and I worked on an animation, and I wrote a script, and I learned how to animate. And then I wrote a manual, like explaining how I animated and the whole idea behind it. It was about the influence of soap operas in Brazil and their influence like on cultural aspects of Brazil, because that's huge. Like in the whole Latin culture, soap operas kind of dictate, the next thing. So, and then when I presented it, because you have to present in front of like the judges, like some professors that sit and judge your paper. That was one of the things that one of them said. He said, you are very good at translating technical terms into something that people can understand. And I got offered a job on the spot by him because he knew about this tech company in São Paulo that was looking for someone like that. But I was already engaged and I was already planning to come here. So I refused the job. And then like I look back and now I am a tech founder. So maybe I just never realized.
The universe was trying to talk to you and you weren't accepting.
Yeah. Exactly.
So what brought you to Orlando?
So I when I first came here, I lived in Kentucky. That was when I first started studying for my master's degree. And then I transferred it to Boston where my fiance lived. We got married there. We had our first son there. And then when he was about 2 years old, he was diagnosed with asthma. So when he was 9 months old until he was 2 years old, we didn't leave the hospital. We were always in the hospital with him. He couldn't breathe. But they couldn't diagnose what was the trigger. And then after a couple months, they realized, no, it's the cold weather. Like he's always bad when it's very cold. Because asthma is a very individual disease.
I had asthma as a kid, and even to this day, if I go running in cool weather or exert myself, I get this wheeze.
You get that, yeah, exactly. So some people get it from the pollen, it's different triggers for different people, but for him, it was the weather. So that's when we made the decision to move down here. I already had family here, so it was, easier for us to come. And I like Central Florida as well.
Yeah. Was your husband able to do that? Or was he able to transfer his job or get a new job?
He was an interpreter, medical interpreter in Massachusetts. When we moved here, he couldn't find a job in the area because Massachusetts is very, strict with their laws and medical, like the whole HIPAA protection of the confidentiality between the doctor and the patient and all of that. So sorry. Okay. So they need interpreters there and the staff. And here it's not the same. So he had to transition to real estate for a while. But now he's back at interpreting. Yeah, okay. So it was, challenging.
Yeah.
We had to do it before winter came.
You obviously put your child first. You just moved and said, we'll figure it out when we get there.
For sure, yeah.
That's really great.
We wouldn't do different.
Yeah, and so the journalism thing and so forth, you're freelancing, and then the big idea hits, right, with CityCatt, and I know there's probably a lot of other details in there. Let's talk about. We talked a little bit about how you raised friends and family money, and how you engaged with, and by the way, was it just family or was it also friends on the money raise?
Was it just family?
Family. I thought so. That's why I asked you. It was mostly family support.
Yeah, and it was an unintentional raise. I didn't mean to raise. I just shared the idea, and they're like, I want to put money on it.
People wanted to give you money, right? I talk about that with one of my startups early on. Like I didn't. My first $50,000 I received. I didn't ask for it. It was actually a close friend, and it wasn't really family, but it might as well have been. He was as close to me as family. But he saw that I was taking the leap, and I was so passionate about it that he was like, I want to invest. And it blew me away. I was so surprised, and it was a really cool feeling.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. I didn't expect that. And that specific person, that's one of my whys. I got to keep going because I just want to give back to him so much.
Yeah, right.
Because he believed in me. Yeah.
Right, and it's so special, right? That's such a special vote of confidence and trust. So you raised that, and then you worked with the development team. You had that struggle that we talked about already, and then so when you lost your development team, and you probably were out of money, I'm guessing, right? Pretty
Completely
much.
out of mind. Yeah.
How did you? I mean, and you didn't even have you didn't have a finished product. You didn't have did you even have a demo, a working product? Oh,
I had an app full of bugs that I couldn't talk about to anybody. Like I could show it to someone if I was just side by side with a person, you know. Yeah. See, we're gonna fix this. I could, advocate for it.
Okay, let's pick it up. Let's pick it up there. How did you go from there?
The family was very important then because, they were the first people that I convinced to work for me for free.
So this is the new chapter, right? The new chapter is people that come to work for Lizia for free.
Yes. Then I found out I have this talent. I'm really good at that. I can convince a lot of people to work for me for free.
Another key hallmark of an entrepreneur.
That's right. Yeah. Well, I had to find people that would that had these skills that I didn't have to help me think through what to do next. And as I mentioned before, I had some family members that were in the hospitality field, that were in human resources, and human resources was important for me because the whole business model of CityCatt is connecting people with travelers, and I had to recruit travelers, and there are a lot of intricacies that go with that. So I spent some time just brainstorming a lot with them before I took any other step. And then some of them showed interest to keep going with me. So we sort of had a team, our day jobs. They would come to my house and we would talk and talk and talk. We bought a whiteboard and we wrote a lot on the whiteboard, brainstormed a lot based on our mistakes, based on what we were reading from the industry, insights that were out there. And then I had different people. I know a cousin that wasn't in any industry related, but he was just there to, give his opinion as a consumer. So I kept talking to a lot of people. It was that, can you hear me?
I can hear you fine. And so you were like, okay, I'm out of money. I've got an incomplete product, but I cannot give up.
Yeah, so that's when I did what I should have done, what we talked about in the beginning. Let's strategize. Let's plan this thing. So I sat with the family. I also started, that's when I also realized, if I'd have talked to people before, I would have avoided some of these mistakes. So I need some guidance. I need some mentorship. So I started applying for things, for accelerators, for things that I could get involved with so I could learn more. So that was the point where I got involved with Babson. I applied for the WIN Lab and I got accepted into the WIN Lab. So when I started on the WIN Lab, I didn't really have an app out there. I had a website. That's about it, and an unfinished app. But I had this team, still working for me, helping me out in their after hours. And that was the point where I was challenged by people that actually knew about what they were doing on finding a business model that worked for us with the resources that we had in hand. And if we didn't know about the resources, we had to go and find. So they challenged us to go and find the resources. They challenged us to find other monetization avenues. They challenged us to make do with whatever we had at hand, with whatever team we had at hand. And really think through measurable ways to keep advancing, not just dream up, but, let's get that dream and translate it measurable and attainable so we can keep going. So all of that, if I had gone to business school, probably I would have known, but, it was a crash course, a crash MBA, it was really quick MBA that I got to go through. So I'm really thankful for those mentors that I got through the WIN Lab experience. And that one specifically is it's for women. So that was to me in my story, I wouldn't say it's a rule of thumb, but to me it was very important that it was a specific one for women because they really helped us leverage whatever attributes we have as women, and also the circumstances that we have as women, that are unique, like such as being a mom, for example. Yeah. And instead of looking at them as challenges, leveraging these things to your favor in your startup journey. That was very important for me because I was challenging, as we talked before, like in my personal life. I was trying to homeschool a second grader, 2 kindergartens. And it was tough, but it was totally worth it. It was in Miami. I had to drive there weekly, but and like I would wake up at 4 a.m. and then drive there to be there at 8 and then stay there up to 5. It was a whole day thing, and then come back here, and I would get home at like midnight, and start working the other day. So weekly, I did this for a whole semester, but it was totally worth it because they challenged me in so many ways. They challenged us to find other monetization avenues. They challenged us to think through goals that weren't abstract, but that were attainable, reachable goals that we could actually, achieve. Actually, also not just think through goals, but make them reachable. Like don't think too far ahead. Think 6 months ahead, a year ahead, up to a year and a half ahead, maybe. Yeah. But that's, and then they taught us this is how investors think as well. They're looking for a return, like a 3-year return. They want to know your runway for the next 18 months. All of these things I had no idea before I started on WIN Lab. So it was a crash course. Like it was kind of like going through an MBA very fast with that experience. And that was a game changer for me. It gave me the tools that I needed. It made me think through, not just the goals, but how to reach them. And maybe there is a cheaper way to reach them than developing a whole app. And that's what we ended up doing. We found ways to recruit cats around the world. We found ways to close partnerships with other bigger players than us, just because we had because then we realized also, not every single player out there will want to specialize in every single field. So they'll partner up with people like us that have a very specific idea, so we can implement that for them. So I learned that I could leverage that, that skill that I always had. I always loved talking. I always loved leading. I always loved translating, technical things into into things that everybody could understand. So I just used all of that in my favor, and I started closing partnerships with people that were bigger than me. I started getting the attention of people without having anything, actually, But people listened to me, and that actually led me to TechCrunch. It led me to being one of the fellows in the first How I Built This Summit. Back then, I still didn't have much, but I had myself as a founder.
You had this new belief in yourself and your business model, it sounds like, right?
And, not the business model yet, just on myself.
Yourself, right?
Yes.
And did you feel like it was the mentors and the people who led the program that really were the ones that really put that in you, or was it maybe some of your cohort peers, or was it a combination of both?
They weren't the ones that told me what my business model should be, but they were the ones that kept challenging me.
Yeah, but you believe in yourself. That's what I'm getting at this part.
Yes, yeah, for sure, yeah. Mm-hmm. They led me to realize, although you still don't have much, you are a CEO, and you have to behave like a CEO. So, start behaving like one and lead whoever you have right now with you. If you don't have anybody and it's just you as a founder, it wasn't my case, but there were some like that in the program. Still, you have to behave like a CEO, because CEOs build cultures. CEOs, they get the vision and they actually make it happen. And if you don't think like one, you will not go anywhere.
Right.
So they gave me that confidence in the beginning, and they led me to think through some things like, as a woman, you are a natural multitasker. As a mom, you're a natural multitasker. Why not use that to your favor? The fact that you're a woman doesn't make you weaker. It makes, it gives you these amazing tools that you can use to your favor in building the business. So they helped me strategize. They helped me, really, think through every single aspect of the business. They kind of do that also. Like they'll do a couple weeks on financing, a couple weeks on operations, a couple weeks focus on team building, different things of the business, so you can really think through that. So
Wow.
that was a game changer, because that's when I stopped and strategized. I didn't do much in development, but I thought a lot through, the business model and how to monetize. How can I monetize in different ways, not just one single way, so I can become more sustainable? All of that, all of the lingo, the startup lingo, everything business related, I learned in like 6 months throughout that. Yeah, that accelerator period.
Yeah. And had to learn it, just in time, right? To save your whole venture and everything you were going to try to create.
Yes.
And so you must have come out of those things so energized, out of this WIN Lab, so energized, right?
Yes.
And so how did you, so what was next? Did you find a new technical partner to start getting your product ready?
I did, yeah. Towards the end of the program, I was already trying to find someone, and I found someone, like amongst my own friends. My best friend from childhood, actually, she married a coder, so a developer, and he ended up buying my idea, and he became my technical founder. And so I had to make some changes. For example, like his specialty is web apps, not mobile apps. So I'm like, okay, let me think through this, and ended up being, a perfect fit, because then I realized, through studies and surveys, that most people plan trips and their computers anyway. So, why go for an app? And also I found out that travel apps have the lowest conversion rates and all the apps, all the app, because, people just download them for the trips and then they delete it. So why am I going to spend all this money in an app? Right. So all of these things ended up playing to my favor, but.
So okay, so you got your technical piece back on track. Someone you trust who's building it with, and you got your new mindset that you gathered down in the at the WIN Lab, and this whole intensive semester that you're writing it, and 5 a.m. you're driving to Miami, and so how I built this? Where did this come from? How did this opportunity pop up?
I think the WIN Lab experience kind of woke up like this superwoman thing in me, where I thought
anything was possible, and then you could do anything you wanted.
I could conquer the world. I don't know. I felt like it. It's not just the WIN Lab. Also, the fact that I'm a mom really helped a lot. I don't know if all moms feel like that, but you're have all these challenges every day with the kids. So it kind of gives you also the confidence, to do other things. You're like, well,
nothing you can't handle.
Yeah, I'm doing all of this, why can I not do something else? So when I was a fan of how I built this podcast, and when they first talked about the summit, and they said, we're going to select 18 companies to be fellows in this summit, I thought I could do it. I just had this confidence. And my co-founder was always laughing at me. She's like, Lizia, you think too much of yourself. And I'm like, it's not that. It's not that I think I'm somebody, like I just think that if I apply myself, if people can listen to what I'm saying, I think they'll buy my vision, because it's been like that so far. When I get the chance to speak about it, people really buy the vision.
Feel they get infected with your energy and your optimism.
I think this is one of the things that I've been since I was a little kid. So why not, So I did that, I applied for it, and I was confident about it. I thought I was going to get in, and I got in.
This is reinforcing bad behavior, Lizia. This is reinforcing bad behavior. Your co-founder's like, oh, now we can never say anything to her about anything, right?
Yeah, I didn't get,
a lot of things you didn't get. To be fair, there's other things.
No, I didn't get success stories from everything that I tried, but that was one that really, was very exciting. Like when I got the email, I couldn't believe it. I could and I couldn't, because I get that. Yeah.
I get that. And so they flew you out there.
Yeah, I flew to San Francisco. I was a part of the summit. It was a pretty cool experience. They had a VIP dinner the night before, and like all of these amazing founders were there, like VCs from all over San Francisco. I got to meet one of the Airbnb founders as well, and we got to chat. And my son just came in. Sorry, and now he left.
Okay. It's okay. Part of the story. It's okay.
Yes, right.
So you're out there to be able to, it's like a little conference of people. But how I built this is kind of a show. So how is that the same thing?
How is it like
they do the interview they talk about.
So they brought some of the people that they had interviewed for the podcast before on the stage to kind of retell the story, and like the host kind of had a chat with them, and it was a small summit. I don't think they allowed many people to sign up for it, but like everybody that was there, they were all entrepreneurs. The other founders with me that were part of the fellowship, they made us feel like very special. Like they saved the first seats for us, and like we were treated like as royalty there. It was amazing. I couldn't believe myself. And like the night before on the dinner, the VIP dinner, we had like one-on-one interactions with all of these people, and like I realized then, like how normal all of these people are as well. Like, because you see from afar and you think, they're these, superstars that are unreachable, but then you get to talk to them and realize
and they're like just regular.
Yes, regular Joes, just like us, So I met Joe Gebbia there from Airbnb. I was just signing up for my thing. Like once you got there to the VIP dinner, I was just signing up. And then I turned around and he's right there next to me. And I'm like, oh, he looks a lot like Joe Gebbia from Airbnb. and then another girl approaches him and says, you look a lot like Joe Gebbia. And he's like, no, it's not me. It's not. But the thing is, I had a problem with my Airbnb stay. I had booked an Airbnb and I couldn't reach my host. He wasn't replying to my messages.
Opening. I see it. Yes.
So I used that and I started talking to him, and he actually helped me. He got his phone, he opened the app. He helped me reach the person. Yes. And then after that,
technical support from
him. Yeah, no kidding. He was very nice to me. And then like someone else came and broke up that, like people realized it was him. Afterwards up there, when we went up to the dinner area, we got to talk about, about my business then, like the whole CityCatt idea. And I asked him about Airbnb experiences. We always get compared to Airbnb experiences. And I told him, I love Airbnb experiences, but it's just not a fit for families. For many reasons, it's not affordable. The average experience is $150 per person. If you have a family that's 5 people like me, that adds up to $750 for a 2-hour experience. I cannot deal with that. I said, I told him my reasons, and he actually agreed with me. It was a very out of this world experience where he said, yeah, I see your point. And to your point, we are reaching out to younger millennials. That's our niche, and we're serving them. Yeah, individuals that have money and they don't have families yet. That's our niche. And I can see the need to something like CityCatt to your niche. So I got what I needed, like the feel that I needed from someone that actually saw the opportunity on CityCatt. And then the next day he was a speaker at the conference. And after he spoke, he was walking around the area there. And then he saw me. And then he came and followed up with me about my stay. Like he wanted to know if I got it all right. Yeah.
Everybody's like, whoa, why is she so special?
Amazing customer service. I got to tell you, he remembered me and he checked up on me. So, I felt very honored. I wrote a blog post about that, how, I got customer service, 5-star customer service from the Airbnb founder himself. So,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. So the big takeaway on this, by the way, is kind of like going for things and believing in yourself, and then knowing that it could happen. Like with the Tampa Bay Wave, I think you know a little bit about us. The Tampa Bay Wave, we're like the largest startup accelerator in Tampa Bay, and we're 12 years old now. We started as a meetup, but our founder, she applied for $1 million grant, and she had never applied for a grant before. And it was a matching $1 million grant. She had to have $1 million to get the $1 million, and it was out of Washington D.C. And she won that thing, and it changed the way like what we do. Like went from a meetup to like a startup accelerator with a physical 10,000 square foot facility off of this thing, And it was just all about believing and giving it a shot and believing in yourself, right?
Yes,
And
yes.
it's not surprising it was a woman, by the way, that did that. Okay.
Yeah, like in the beginning, I thought that I had to have everything figured out before, I went out in the world. And then it was a big mistake. Now I realize, people don't expect you to be perfect.
No.
And that they actually relate to you better when you're yourself, when you're authentic. You believe in yourself, but as at the same time, you're being authentic. You're about your mistakes, about what you don't have yet, and what you have yet to conquer. And people support you more than you think.
They're more likely to support you when you're like only halfway on your journey than when you think you're already there. Like they're more likely to support you when you're just barely started your journey. Somehow it draws people in, doesn't it?
That's right. And even with the cats, when we started recruiting the city cats in cities, and we were pretending to be something, we didn't have that much traction. But then when we started to be honest about it and reach out and actually say, we're a startup, we're just a team of 3. We don't know what you were doing yet, but we would like you to join us. We had much better traction then.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
It's so weird, right?
Yeah.
It's so funny. By the way, it just makes me think of my sales training by 15 years ago, almost 20. When I was in enterprise sales, I would sell big 6-figure enterprise software, like big ticket stuff. And we had this thing called Dummy Up. It was training. We had sales training. It was called Dummy Up. It was like the dumber that you, as a salesperson, you thought your job was to be knowledgeable in everything about your product. But in fact, the salespeople that did the best were the ones that were confused and didn't really know their product, and they would ask for help. Like even the old door knocking salesperson to walk in and talk to the receptionist and be very confused and lost. People want to help you.
That's right.
Even if you want to get to the C level, if you want to get to the CEO, and you have to get through the gatekeeper, which may be the executive assistant or something like that, be lost and confused, and people don't be somebody who has everything buttoned up and has the answers. Nobody wants to help that person.
Yeah. Well, you sound like a jerk when you pretend. Yeah, you know everything else.
Right.
You're not relatable.
Be vulnerable and be incomplete and vulnerable, and people want to help you. It's interesting. It's a power in the universe that. Yeah.
Because at the same time, also when you're vulnerable, you're giving them the opportunity to help you, and they feel part of it. They feel empowered to help. That's what I found with my team, with my whole team. Now I have a team, that's bigger, and that's what I do with them. When I don't know something, I tell them I don't know, ask for the feedback, and I've seen them grow before my eyes from people that knew nothing about what they were doing. Now they're so knowledgeable, and they're just shining through. I remember Sarah Blakely from Spanx. Her first hire was a PR person, who was not a PR person, was just a girl that she met that was very outspoken. And she's like, well, I need a PR person. Could you do it? And she's like, I don't know anything about it. Well, but I believe you can because you're outspoken. Okay. And they learned together. They grew together. And, that's the
thing. So
much
motivation and power in that. So much energy and power in that, right?
Yeah.
And it almost is a challenge to someone, like when you get further along, to actually, when I said dummy up earlier, this idea, I hate to say it this way, but when we were learning sales training, pretend to be less smart than you are. It's meaning so right now it's easy when you're coming up to be I don't know, but later when you're further in success, it's hard to actually pretend to be vulnerable. I hate to say pretend, but project yourself even more vulnerable than you really are, because it relaxes people and invites them in. And that takes a lot of extra discipline and a lot of extra talent to actually do. Like the Airbnb founder. There's a great example. This Airbnb founder you talked about, right, Gabby, right?
Joe Gebbia.
Joe Gebbia, yeah. He kind of showed you vulnerability. It sounds like just in those interactions, right? Because he's somebody who's way up here. But he just chose to not, that allowed lots of things to happen, right?
Yes,
and
yes.
That's a very sophisticated thing.
Yeah, and also with team building too. I realized after this grew up a little bit, our team grew up a little bit, and I kind of used the same thing over and over again, like the vulnerability thing. That in my case I wasn't trained for that. I was actually being vulnerable. But in our case, it went from being just a thing that I did to being part of the culture. So for us now, we hire based on skills, not on resume. In our interview process, we're very vulnerable. We tell people, this is our need. This is where our skills, we don't have skills in this area. We need someone that comes with these skills. And we don't take into consideration the resume. We want to hear about people's skills. And then it's this exchange of vulnerability that we have with the person that we're interviewing, that it's very authentic and automatically creates a bond that, makes us a big family. My team is a big family. Like we're very open with our vulnerabilities, and also everybody knows very well each other's skills. Like we know she is skillful in this and he's skillful in that, and it's this exchange, like continuous exchange of information and being vulnerable and being authentic, and it just works very well for us. And everybody that comes in has to come into this dynamics. We don't want to change that.
That's amazing. This is the best part. So that's actually a pretty great segue into how we want to wrap up, which is really the status of things at CityCatt and how you guys have survived the pandemic and just how you're doing now and how you're able to grow right now. Like, what's the state of things?
So the pandemic humbled everybody, right?
Yeah.
Everybody had to rethink their strategies. Even the biggest players, had to stop and rethink. With us, we had to change a little bit of our concept. Before the pandemic, CityCatt recruited locals in cities and tested and trained them. But average Joes, anybody that had lived in a city for more than 5 years, so was eligible, and also they had to be older than 21. But we had the idea for the future to do something that we call the VIP cats. I don't think we explained that in this podcast.
Yeah, on the last you talked about it, right? And
but I mean here, like the CityCatt concept.
Yes,
Yeah. So the CityCatt is a platform that connects travelers with locals and destinations for an exchange of information. So you're looking to plan a trip to somewhere that you haven't been before. So the CityCatt is the person, the local that we have recruited and tested and trained that will help you plan your trip with relevant and up-to-date information, and also based on whatever you expect from that trip. So it's a very personalized service. It's not, they're not selling you an experience. They're not selling you a package. They're not booking things for you. They are locals who are, based on what you tell them, they're giving you the information that you need. So I'm a vegan. I need to know the best vegan restaurants. I'm traveling with my kids. What would be the best approach, in this city? Where are the playgrounds so I can take breaks? Things like that. So that's what the CityCatt is. So before, we were trying to connect people with average Joes that we were training. With the pandemic, it made us rethink our strategy, and we wanted to do in the future something that we call the VIP cats. So the VIP CityCatts would be people that after getting a lot of good ratings, they could go up in the system and earn more. Or it would be influencers that, because they already have a following, they could already start with a VIP cat status, because they could bring their followers, and also people could verify their identities on their social media profiles. Yeah. With the pandemic, it changed everything, because we always knew that CityCatt was for the cautious traveler, the one that likes to plan ahead. And before the pandemic, this was a percentage of the whole travel,
but that percentage grew during the pandemic.
The pandemic just made like almost everybody into a cautious traveler. So now we're like, well, maybe our cats have to also be upgraded now so this cautious traveler can get more comfortable with planning a trip in a world post-COVID. So we decided that our cats now all of them had to be influencers. They all had to have a presence in some sort of social media, but we're focusing on Instagram now, because then the travelers, before they hire the service of a cat, they can go and visit their profiles and check their photos, see if they're knowledgeable, see if they're fit also, because we have different styles. Everybody has different styles. So you go to their Instagram account, you see, this person has the same taste as I do. And I can see myself trusting that person before I hire the person.
Yeah.
So we added that trust to the service, trust element to the service. So that's what we did. And with that change, we've been getting much more traction because actually, like before, you could find, the services that I mentioned before, where you can hire a local to guide you out there, but it wasn't as safe as CityCatt. But now we have this extra element. Nobody has done that specific thing where you can hire an influencer to help you.
Yeah. So this is something like this isn't just somebody that a mystery person that's being assigned to you. This is someone who is really out there and really who really is publicly facing in terms of what their interests are, especially on Instagram, right? I would imagine Instagram is your number one, the number one place that you look, I would guess.
Yeah, it is the one now. We're starting with Instagram. So they're out there. They're being vocal about their love for their cities. You might be following them already, these influencers. So like they'll tell you, I'm with CityCatt now. If you want my help, go on CityCatt and hire me. So you can hire them like in a safe way through the platform. And at CityCatt, after we started getting feedback from a lot of people, we found that most people still want to have a place to plan trips, but they can find it on the internet. There's a lot of trip planners, but they're very complicated. They have a lot of extra features that they don't really want. It makes the whole experience complicated. And people were actually looking for something simple. So we decided to connect travelers with locals through a trip planner. So we created this trip planner that's very simple, straightforward, kind of like modeled after, iPhones, where you just have one button and you don't have to go too far to get the thing done. And so the CityCatt comes inside your trip plan. You invite them, kind of like Google Docs. When you invite someone to edit a document with you, you invite a CityCatt to come and plan with you. And you can also invite friends and family, whoever's joining you on the trip, and you can talk in a forum and discuss ideas. So it's what we're calling it now a social trip planner.
Yeah. I like it. Maybe you should call it Insta Planner.
Ooh, you want me to change my name? I had a person who said the CityCatt's a stupid name, like in the beginning.
No. But no, this idea of you're kind of blending in Instagram with trip planning. I think at a very basic level, like that's very powerful because people know Instagram is really big, and Instagram is all about visuals and pictures and taste and interest and trip planning and travel. It's really powerful. And so with the pandemic and COVID, you decided to really kind of raise the bar on the level of the cats, so to speak, and in terms of what you're delivering to people. And I think that's smart. So this is one of those things that was a blessing, has become a blessing in disguise.
Yes, for sure. It was a blessing in disguise for us. I think it challenged us to rethink again. And now at this point, I am just addicted to this. I love rethinking.
You know it's coming.
Yes. I don't see that as now to me, it's a blessing. It's always an opportunity to improve, always an opportunity to listen. I've become a good listener through my journey. Now I listen before I do anything. Of course, at the end, I'm the one calling the shots, but I do make my decisions based on feedback from customers, from my team, from the circumstances around me. I think, there's the whole lean startup, concept that I'm sure you're familiar with.
Oh, yeah. The book.
Yes. I really like that. And that's what I'm adopting now from now on.
We should have gotten you that book the very first day.
Yes, I know. If you're listening to this, please buy the book.
That book, right? And so this is great. I think a lot of people. By the way, we'll put that in the show notes. That book. That we're trying to get upstream to aspiring entrepreneurs that haven't made the leap yet, so they can get some of this basic stuff that we most of us have to learn after we get out there and struggle and stumble, right? Like wouldn't it be great if you could get all that before you made the leap, so you could make this?
Yes. Yes, listen to stories also, you know, like the other thing that I found throughout this journey is that, you know, when you're labeled a startup, people expect you to go through the startup journey, like the average startup journey and be an average founder. And it's not going to go like that for everybody. It didn't go like that for me. There are some things that, you know, yes, they happen, but I'm not your average founder. I'm a mom.
Yeah.
3 boys. I'm a homeschool mom, you know. I'm a journalist. I am not a tech founder. And now I am in charge of a tech travel company. I'm not even in travel. I'm not a hospitality major. I'm a journalist. You know, so it's very unlikely.
Right.
And, you know, if I had to adapt to whatever they expected from me for being a startup, it wouldn't work out. And the moment that I stopped to listen to other founder stories, you know, the ones that now are very successful from the past, you know, I realized they didn't follow that path, you know. No. They all went through different paths. I am a fan of Sarah Blakely from Spanx. I love how authentic she is, how she didn't compromise any of her values. I remember she tells a story about when once these 2 guys came up to her and said, you know, you want to open a business, it's war. Be ready for war. And then she went back home and she cried so much. And she said, I don't want to go to war. I just want to be myself.
Yeah, it's not war. War is like a male. I'm sorry. War is like a male construct.
Yes.
It's not a female. It's not a female construct.
Yes. And I'm with her. You know, I don't want to compromise who I am. I want who I am to be a part of my business and to really be incorporated into the culture of the business. And that's when I started actually getting traction. When I, you know, just, okay, let me filter whatever advice it's coming from, you know, the whole startup culture thing. I am going to filter that and I'm going to make decisions and myself. And some things I'm going to implement, some things I'm not going to implement. I'm just going to go with my hunch and see what happens. And I can always change. I loved homeschool because of that. You know, that's why I chose homeschool for my kids, because I can always change based on, you know, their feedback, their pace. And the same goes now for my business. You know, I decided that I'm always going to keep changing. I'm doing better decisions because times are going to change. Circumstances are going to change. The customer is going to change. So that's me now.
Yeah.
Check back with me in a couple of years, but I think it's going to be like that forever.
I get it. I think it's fantastic. And so you're actually international now too, right?
I am.
You guys are starting. How long have you been doing things out of the U.S.? How long has this been going?
About 1.5 years ago, we got approached by JETRO, Japan Trade Organization, and to consider launching in Japan with the Olympics.
Wow! Oh, that's
yeah. So that actually, I always had a dream to go international. I wanted CityCatt to be your go-to source of information for any trip around the world, kind of like, you know, Airbnb is now for your stay. But I didn't know where to start, so that was the first step for us, and then we decided to also consider going to other places as well. So we literally started with the list of 10 most visited places by Americans. And then Tokyo was up there, and then Paris came after, and then Sydney is also in the list. So we decided to recruit cats in these 3 cities. So we have cats in these specific 3 cities. Wow. Of course, everything is on the shelf right now with COVID.
Yeah.
Internationally, but we're highly focused right now on national trip until the end of the year. But it's still there. We're going to launch a new service with the Olympics next year, which is the ability to actually hire a cat to go with you on outings. We thought that it's a perfect opportunity because it's a very foreign country.
Yes.
So, you know, you could use that help, especially with the Olympics, and having the Japanese government with us. We get to actually work with them to qualify these cats to help people with the Olympics specifically as well. You know, they can be trained by them, by the Olympics committee, all of that. So we're working on these negotiations and partnerships. It's been an interesting journey.
Last question. How do you get the word out about CityCatt? Do you do Google ads, or is it just social media? Like, how do you get the word out? How do people find CityCatt?
I don't do Google Ads. Google Ads is based on keywords, and I have all of these big players against me, that already purchased these keywords, and I can bid against them. Sorry. Wait.
It's okay.
Abel, give him the remote, okay?
He never lets us have the remote.
I'll give you a prize, okay? Okay, wait for me.
One
Out
episode.
there. Okay, okay, one episode. Yeah, that's good.
And have the remote for one episode.
Okay. Okay, one episode for now, and then when I leave, hey, okay, oh, 2, okay, okay, 100 is. Talk to you. They're boys. They fight all day
That's
long.
fine. Yeah, that's right. You get the boys. All right, this is good because we're gonna wrap up here. But
Yeah. Okay, I was saying something and I was gonna finish.
The question was about, how do you get the word out? How do people find
Oh
about
yeah.
CityCatt?
Do you want me to finish that up?
Yeah. Finish that off. How do
Let me
people
close the door.
Go ahead. Yeah. So how do you get your traffic and your
Yes.
clients and all that?
Yeah. So I was saying, digital ads don't work for us. It's based
You're
on
up
keywords. You have
against
to bid.
Orbits, you're up against Orbits and all those Travelocities and all those guys.
Yeah, they don't work for us. And I'm a follower. Oh my gosh, they're back.
That's okay.
Sorry, I'm
It's okay.
sorry.
It's okay. 5. All we need is like 4 minutes, maybe 3.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell them. They're all about, like that. I want to have the remote for 100 episodes. You cannot have it for 100 episodes. You can only have it for 2 episodes.
So okay, we'll wrap this up. So
Yes.
in short, like how does CityCatt get its leads and its new clients?
So with the cats, I see the cats also as clients. So with the cats, we do it very manually through Instagram. We recruit them. Yeah. Then that's my team doing that. With the users, yeah, we've been using social media in our favor because now we're highly focused on Instagram. We're using Instagram for everything, and we're doing a lot of PR as well. So I'm trying to get exposure in anywhere that I can. As I said before, I see that when I have the opportunity to speak, I get more traction. So I'm always trying to find opportunities for me to speak myself, like tell people my vision.
Like this podcast.
Yeah, like this podcast. This is who I am. This is the person behind the business. This is what I'm building. It's not a faceless business. There is a face behind it. There is a person that's really concerned about delivering the best product for you guys. So that's what I've been doing. I realized that every time that I get the opportunity to speak, even if it's for 3 people, these 3 people, now they become, emotionally attached to me, and then they go out there and then they talk to more 3 and more 3. So the word of mouth is very powerful, and people shouldn't undermine that. It's amazing what you can get from that, like much more than digital ads.
That's really, really great. A great message at the end here to tell people about when you're starting your startup, that it's really the power of the founder and the vision and the passion of that founder to be able to be infectious, to infect other people is like the most powerful force in the universe when it comes to startups, right?
It really is. Yeah.
That's beautiful. Well, Lizia, this has been an awesome interview, and I'm so glad that I almost wonder if we're going to put the part when you had to negotiate with your boys into the show, or whether that's going to be like a blooper. I don't know yet, but it was great.
You should. People.
I might put it in there because it was great. It was like true negotiations. It was maybe the toughest negotiation that you have on any given day is right there.
I'm telling you, after being a mom, I can do anything.
They are not interested in working with you.
No.
They want what they want, and they're not negotiating.
Yes, and being boys specifically, oh my gosh, they're so territorial.
Yeah, great. So this was really special, and thank you so much. And we'll get this posted in the next couple of weeks. And it's just a pleasure to know you. It's an honor, and I just always will be supportive. And just not just as a woman founder, which is its own trophy of things, but also just founder to founder and all the challenges that go with it.
Yes.
So here's to you, and fellow TechCrunch alum as well.
Yay! We should get a T-shirt, something. I don't know. Yeah.
I know. Okay, have a good night, and give my best to you and your family, please.
Thank you. You too. It was
We'll
a
be in touch
pleasure.
with you. Thank
Yes.
you.
Bye.
Good night. All right, bye.